Hi, everyone. We're going to talk about something that interests me a lot. As a matter of fact, it fascinates me. I love to talk and learn about history. History is a great teacher. It tells us everything we need to know about what happened and very possibly what could happen because the laws of history repeats itself. Well, hopefully, what we're going to be talking about today doesn't repeat itself because we're talking about the military. We're talking about folks who gave their life up for their cause, and their cause just so happens to be our country. And I'm thrilled to have with me Mel Smith. Mel is with the Michigan Traveling Military Museum. Mel, you're a lot more than with it. You are it. Welcome. How are you doing?
Hey, fantastic. Trying to survive the COVID pandemic like everybody.
Mel, I took a look at your website and it said something that I really have to tell our viewers today. The weapons used, the uniforms worn, the letters written, the sacrifices made. Each piece of memorabilia in the Michigan Traveling Military Museum holds a story of the individual who used it. History at your fingertips, and we bring it all to you. Mel, you are definitely a big secret that a lot of folks are not aware of. Where is the museum located?
Hey, we're located in a great spot right in downtown Bay City. We're at the corner of Center and Washington. Our street address is actually 725 Washington.
Now, the folks can take a look at the website mtmm.us, and they're going to see a lot of things on that website. But let's bring it right direct. We're live. We're at the museum right now. Tell us at first, how did you get interested in something like this, and how did you accumulate the things that you have right now at the museum?
Well, I started out kind of like a lot of folks. My dad was a World War II veteran, and he really, shared his history. We had a shared interest in military history. I was brought up on the old John Wayne War movies and combat series and, Victory at Sea. And basically, I got interested at a very young age. And my dad actually bought me some surplus items when I was a kid. And it just grew and grew and grew, and to the point where it's the passion of my life.
Now, you have the opportunity and you have purchased some items from some people over the years, haven't you?
Yeah, we've actually got about 40 years now into collecting. And I purchased a lot of stuff from the families of veterans, and I've purchased items through other collectors and as people passed away, estates, auction, garage sales. When you're starting out, you go through all the avenues to try to find it.
Well, and the thing is, too, what you've done is not only have you purchased the items from folks, you haven't taken advantage of those folks either. I mean, they have received good money from you, so you can exhibit and keep the loved ones, the memory of the loved ones there at the museum for many of those family members to come and see.
Oh yeah, very much so. What we do is we've always been fair with people. There's a lot of the military institutions that have a value, and it's much, it makes you feel better and much more honest when you give the person a fair price, and they're happy, they have a benefit, and of course, they're really happy that you're honoring their relatives and their memory. That, in a lot of cases, is more important than money.
Now, you have had in the past gun and knife shows. I say in the past, everything has changed this year. And a lot of those shows you haven't had the opportunity to have. So you've been exposed to not only what you have at the museum, but also individuals have attended the gun and knife shows and had the opportunity to share with others what they have and very possibly have other folks purchase the items that they own.
Yeah, the museum or the gun shows were wonderful because you could make contact with people because we always advertised, whether it was on SPW or other places, that were always purchasing military items for the museum. So when we lost the shows this year because of the pandemic, it's kind of cut off, one of our places where we find an opportunity to connect with people and find items for the museum.
Now, when folks walk in the front door, and I'm assuming right behind you is the front door of the museum, what's the first thing that they see when they walk in the door, Mel?
Well, basically, it's the layout of our museum. It's a nice museum size, it's 850 square feet. And basically, when they come in, they'll look at some of our first showcases, what are right over here. We have a showcase which is basically dedicated to the Spanish-American War. It's a real nice collection from a gentleman who lived in Harbor Beach. He was a captain and fought in the Philippines and in Cuba. His name was Gilmore Scranton. We have his swords, some of his field equipment. Spanish-American War was a long time ago. It's kind of hard to find the items. So we're really happy to have a collection which encompasses the guy's entire military career.
Now, what other conflicts are represented in the museum, Mel?
We start out with the Spanish-American War, and then we go to, of course, World War I, World War II, Korea, and of course the Vietnam War. And we're just starting to get into exhibits for the Gulf War, War in Afghanistan, War in Iraq. So we basically, cover everything except civil.
You mentioned to me one time that you had someone that not only had a Purple Heart, but they had a lot of documentation to go along with the Purple Heart. That would make for a really interesting display.
Oh yeah, what basically was the gentleman lived up in the Gaylord area, and I ran into him at a gun show, and he was in his 80s and having health difficulties. When he was a very young man, he was basically a child, his brother was killed in action in the Pacific. He was what we call a Marine torpedo bomber. And when he passed away, his mother had given all of his brother's items to him, hold, for a long time until he's in his 80s. And he was looking for somebody to take care of stuff and honor his brother more than anything. And we got together and I purchased grouping from him, and he's extremely happy because we have a wonderful entree on the website with his story. It's one of my favorite groupings. It's so nice to be able to talk to the brother and the personality. He just loved his brother so much, and to keep it with him all these years. It's just a way nobody will forget his brother.
Why don't you show us some examples, Mel, of some of the other displays that you have there at the museum?
Sure. This one right here, this is one of our World War I displays here. And it's kind of interesting. It's two particular Michigan veterans. The first man was a fellow named Andrew Vogel, right here in Bay City, top one. And the interesting thing about Andrew is he was in the United States Tank Corps. And that was at a time before we even had a tank. And that was like the beginning of our tank operations. And when he trained, there was not an actual working tank in the United States of America. And he ended up going over toward the end of the war and actually got into the first tank division. And this was found in Bay City, basically in a crawl space of his daughter's house. And the daughter was still living, and she was real happy again that we were able to obtain it and put it in the museum. And underneath
It sounds like you're getting into the museum a little bit further, and we're losing your signal just a little bit. Maybe Mel, just a little bit. You mentioned a couple of different examples of people that have given you the material to show at the museum. The furthest away individual, let's say, are they all pretty much from Michigan, or are there some exhibits from people from other parts of the country? Oh, I think we lost him. It's very fascinating just to see some of the items that they do have at the military. The Traveling Military Museum in downtown Bay City. Now, some of you wonder, okay, downtown Bay City, that's kind of spread out all over. Whereabouts? Well, maybe some of you remember the Shoe Market in downtown Bay City, the corner of Center and Washington. That's where Mel has the museum set up. And it's not like it's open 7 days a week. The museum does have some special hours. And of course, we'll be asking Mel about those once we get him back on to our feed. It appears as though in most cases, when you take a look at museums like this, many of the examples come from all over the country. Mel, I was just mentioning to the folks, other than the immediate Michigan area, can you give us some examples of places where you have picked up this memorabilia from? Is it all Michigan?
No, basically mostly Michigan, but we picked up things from veterans in Ohio, Indiana, basically around Michigan, the states around Michigan, but most of it is all Michigan based.
And when it comes to Michigan in particular, Michigan's involvement with a lot of these conflicts really stands out, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Michigan people have been involved in key roles all the way from the Civil War right through to current day.
Now, do you have any examples, Mel, of weapons, of firearms there at the museum?
No, we do not have any weapons in the museum besides, edged weapons, knives, swords, and such. We basically had a thought of doing that, but with the insurance costs, break-in problems, we better not serve here.
I just got a call from somebody here. I got a text and they said, now, where are you located? And I had mentioned to him while we were trying to get the connection reestablished that you're right in downtown Bay City, right at the corner of Washington and Center, correct?
Oh yeah, we're in a great spot, right in the center of town.
And you've got special hours too.
Yeah, normally what we're open is Saturdays from noon to 4 because of the COVID pandemic. We are open by appointment also, and I do a lot of appointment visits here. People will call me and they'll be in town on a Monday and they say, is the possibility that you could open up for us? We have an interest in Hill District. And I'm usually, if I'm home, I'm happy to open up for people privately.
I think this is really interesting that we get the point across to people that you do have the appointment scheduling, because let's say in the case of right now, youngsters of school-age children, you can't really accommodate all of them right now because of the restrictions. But let's say a teacher or two could set up an appointment, come in, and they could do kind of what we're doing right now. They could actually, to their class, show them the different things that are available in the museum.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We welcome that type of thing. We'll have groups call us here, people like veterans groups and that, and they'll have a few folks that are going to be in Bay City for a visit, shall we say, and they ask if we can open it up for a while, and we do, and they come on in and get a chance to look at it in, kind of a private setting.
Let's talk a little bit. I don't know how far away you can move without losing the connection again, but I'm fascinated with some of the different displays that you have. You mentioned about the Vietnam conflict.
Yeah, we,
Um,
yeah, we have some nice displays here. We'll wander down toward the end here. Can you see us well, Terry?
yes, I can see it very well.
Yeah, we have a showcase here dedicated to Korean War veterans and early Vietnam here. We have a fellow from Midland, Michigan, Raymond Ranger. He was killed in action in the Korean War in 1951. He was with the 5th Cav. And we have some Vietnam Korean guys up in the top were both wars, crossovers. And we have some different medals and insignias for a helicopter pilot. Another man was wounded on Heartbreak Ridge during the Korean War. In a Vietnam, like a Marine Corps setup with the body armor, the flak vest. And then we have a really nice set from a Green Beret, was from the Flint area. His name was Lonnie Johnson, and he was a terrific guy. He was in the service for almost 30 years. Real interesting man. Hit 5.5 years in Vietnam and Cambodia. Just a super individual. And we were happy to obtain his things after he had passed away.
Now we hear about Purple Heart. Is that display available, or do you have a sample of the Purple Heart that we could see right now?
Sure. We have a real nice one right here. Right here, Terry. And this belonged to a gentleman who was from Otisville, Michigan. His name was Samuel Ferris. And he was in a tank destroyer outfit and was killed in action in World War II in France. And we went into this grouping from it's not his daughter. When he was married to his wife, he did not have children, but his wife remarried and had a daughter with her current husband. And after the mother passed away, she found this grouping. The mom had kept everything, including the Western Union telegrams, which showed that he was missing in action first, and then they reported him killed in action, as they, checked what actually happened to the events that day. And we have his Purple Heart medal, which is engraved with his name in the back. You can probably see that clearly, hopefully.
Yes, it looks that's very impressive.
Oh yeah, see the Purple Hearts, when a fellow was wounded, they were given essentially the same medal. But when a person was killed in action, they would actually engrave the veteran's name on the back of the medal and send it to the family as a keepsake, kind of personalizing it more. And they had letters, to the family, basically, expressing their condolences to what happened. There's a card that comes from General Marshall. You can see a picture of that under a picture of Mr. Ferris himself. And that card would come, and they would say a letter, the letter there, dear Mrs. Ferris, at the request of the president, I write to inform you that the Purple Heart has been awarded posthumously to your husband, Private First Class Samuel Ferris Infantry, who sacrificed his life in the defense of his country. And it's very personal, and it really has a lot of emotion when you look at these sets, because now it's 75 years later or so, and what happened, the emotion of having this Western Union telegram coming to your home, and it's bad news. You're hoping and praying that maybe somebody's just been wounded. And then, when you open it up, you can just imagine the emotion, from seeing that. And, knowing that you've lost your loved one, whether it be your husband or your brother or son or, any member of the family.
Is there one display there, Mel, that really jumps out at you that you really enjoyed putting together? And like you say, the emotion of it, and just it makes you smile when you have a chance to take a look at it. It's one of your favorites. What would that be?
I'll tell you, there's so many of them. I really like the Samuel Ferris grouping. That's a wonderful group. We have a beautiful collection of Purple Hearts to people that were killed in action. But I really like this one because it has so much, so complete, the collection itself. But we have a lot of different things. So, it's hard when you have a whole collection, of different stuff. We actually have another Bay City pair, and it's right up here. I'll show you. And this was a pair of brothers that lived right in Bay City. It was Glenn Shepard and Norman Shepard, if you can see that clearly. And Glenn was in the South Pacific, and he survived the war, where Norman was in the European theater of operations, and he was killed in action in France. And it's kind of interesting to have the brothers together, a tale of two stories. And that's one of our favorites, because of having two family members both in the service.
Is there any particular conflict, Mel, that you have memorabilia of than others?
We basically probably have more World War II, than we have World War I. Of course, because again, there was a lot of availability of World War II people when I grew up. And of course, it was my father's war, so we kind of, shall we say, laser focused on that. And we've always had a real big interest in World War I, because one of the directors and presidents of our museum's father, or grandfather, shall I say, was in the World War I in the polar bear unit that fought the Bolsheviks in Russia. So he has a deep interest in World War I. So we have branched out and have a lot of really interesting World War I displays.
Now, the opportunity to come to the museum. We talked about by appointment. Saturdays, you're open?
Yeah, usually most Saturdays we do, depending on, we're all volunteers here. There's no charge to come into the museum. It's totally free. Nobody's getting paid here. So we have to work around schedule. But I always ask people to try to call us ahead, and our number is 989-798-8709. And just to verify, because things come up, and again with this virus situation, we've been kind of a little more haphazard than what we'd like to be normally.
So that telephone number that's on display right here on the screen, or the web address that we had on before, that's mtmm.us. Folks can learn a lot more about the museum and have the opportunity to get in contact with you. And again, it's I think you really like the idea of having individuals get a hold of you and set up a private showing, because this way it enables them to actually sit there, talk to you, because you seem to have a lot of knowledge about the product that you have in the museum.
Oh, when you have knowledge, when you love something. When you love something, you study it, and you really, you kind of live it. Myself, I was never in the military. I come out of high school later in 1976, and unfortunately, I had some health issues which would have denied me any chance to get into the military. So what we've basically done is I founded this museum as a tribute to our vets. This is a way that I can give back a little bit, and allow people to come in for free, so there's no restraints, that they can come in and enjoy the history and take the time to look, and just really, just have a good time, at their convenience.
Well, Mel, we really appreciate you rolling out the red carpet for us. This is very interesting. And of course, what we've done doesn't do it justice. You really have to be there in order to appreciate it, because it's all about the smell and the feel of history as it has been depicted at the museum. And again, this is the Michigan Traveling Military Museum. I like to call it the Bay City Military Museum. And even though we had a chance to talk to you and you explained something, you still are one of the best kept secrets in the Great Lakes Bay region.
Hey, Terry, can I add one more thing too?
Sure.
What we have here, which is a little different too, is we actually have some items here for sale. We have duplicate collections that we've bought over the years. and we brought some of our duplicates out and offer a selection of all sorts of interesting things, a lot for beginning collectors and some advanced collectors. And we have a terrific section on history books for sale. We've read them and we have them here. They're priced very, very reasonably because we want to get young people as interested in this as I was when I was young. You know, there's not a lot of kids being taught, you know, the history like they were taught when we were kids.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's wonderful. And again, reasonably priced. So a little bit of history at a very minimal cost, it goes a long way.
Oh, yeah, and it supports everything that we take in. Anything we sell, of course, supports the museum. You know, our rent and our taxes and our alarm systems and, you know, and heat and lights. You know, it all helps. And this way we get an opportunity that people can bring home a little souvenir.
Mel, thank you very much again for sharing. We really appreciate it. And we're inviting each and every one of the folks to get in contact with you and set up an appointment, or make sure that on Saturday you're open. Again, the hour on Saturday is when?
It's 12 to 4.
12 to 4. Mel Smith, thank you very much. You take care and have a blessed holiday, okay?
Yeah, it's a pleasure talking with you, Gary.